the current environment right now going into 2021, I think is a great opportunity as the workforce hopefully gets reengaged, as unemployment macro comes down. Time to reset, time to find out what's important to you, time to really start working on your personal brand and get it together and be super smart about it. And don't take for granted what you've got to offer others. A lot of times people undervalue what they have to offer and don't know the alternatives. And that's a good reason to have a visionary career coach with you, not just someone who says, well, I'm going to hold you accountable to the goals you need. What if you need new goals? So start that. This is a great time to do it. And I think the job environment's going to get healthier and healthier.
Hey, it's Rocky. Welcome to Richer Soul. Today's guest is my friend John O'Connor, who's going to share how to build a personal brand that will lead to success in our work and life. Imagine it's 12 months from now, and you've achieved your major life goals. How does it feel to be in the best shape of your life? To wake up energized, excited about the day? To have great relationships and friends who support you and propel you forward? How does it feel to have an excess of money, to be able to make the choices you want? To be fearless and open to trying new adventures? Imagine being connected to the universe and it providing everything you desire. It's possible over time, and your past does not dictate your future. The only thing holding you back from this vision is you. It's time to take control of our thoughts and use them to our advantage. Welcome to Richer Soul, where we achieve our dreams and bring balance to health, wealth, relationships, time, and spirituality. If you have not had a chance to listen to episodes 1 through 9, I encourage you to go back and listen to the framework behind Richer Soul and how to create the life of your dreams. You can also find all the show notes for this episode at richersoul.com. While you're there, you can sign up for a monthly email where I share the best articles I read this month, let you know about upcoming episodes, and share a little wisdom. You can also listen to coaching calls under the Coaching Calls tab. I also share the most interesting articles I read every week on Facebook at facebook.com/Richer Soul. And there's also a Facebook group where you can ask questions and interact with other listeners. Today's quote is from Eckhart Tolle. The decision to make the present moment into your friend is the end of ego. The ego can never be in alignment with the present moment, which is to say, aligned with life, since its very nature compels it to ignore, resist, or devalue the now. Time is what the ego lives on. The stronger the ego, the more time takes over your life. Almost every thought you think is then concerned with past or future, and your sense of self depends on the past for your identity and the future for fulfillment. Fear, anxiety, expectation, regret, guilt, anger are the dysfunctions of the time-bound state of consciousness. Wow, that's powerful. I have to admit, being in the present moment is hard for me, but I keep working on it. It's like when you're in the flow, then life just becomes amazing. We're not going to go too deep on that today, but we are going to chat about an area that seems ego is filled with, and that's our relationship with work. Before we do, let's review last week's action step, which was to look at the areas of personal growth in your life and say, is there something missing? And to re-engage with that, to re-engage with some sort of hobby or activity, right? Going back to our childhood, what made us smile and laugh? Life is lived in the moment, and we need to enjoy the moment and find that harmony. I'm currently reading a fiction book, which I probably need to do a lot more often than I am. This one is Ready Player 2. Now, if you haven't read Ready Player 1, it's amazing. The view of the future and what it could be like, it's both good and it's disturbing. The movie version was pretty good, but you don't get to understand all the nuances of what's going on behind the scenes, and you miss so much of the details. I also have to work on a new hobby that's not related to work and money. I'm thinking of it. We'll see how it comes. Today, my friend John O'Connor joins us. John is going to share ideas of how you can continue to grow and make yourself highly employable. Many of the strategies take time, so we should implement these long before we need a job. In today's ever-changing world, it's great to make yourself highly sought after and valuable. John O'Connor is president and CEO of CareerPro Inc., which provides individual services for career coaching and other individual career services to help you prepare for the job path of your choice. Whether it's executive, federal, or a military career path, the career coaches work with you to build and maximize the effectiveness of your career toolkit. Let's meet our guest. Welcome to Rich Your Soul, John O'Connor. It's great to have you join us today.
Rocky, good to be here.
And I'm excited to learn from you today. We always like to start at the beginning. What was it like when you were growing up, and how much did your family and school teach you about money?
Oh, my goodness. That's a good one. I don't know what I learned about money. I knew that we didn't have a lot growing up in Bowling Green, Ohio, mostly. That's moved from upstate New York, where my dad taught at Clarkson, to the flatlands of the Midwest, which I think you know a little bit about from what I hear.
I haven't lived out in the Midwest. I'm more an East Coast guy.
Oh, yeah. You call yourself East Coast, Pennsylvania people. That's the way I think of it. My mom's from Iowa. My dad's originally from California, and everybody seemed to meet in the middle, I guess. But I'm not sure, what I learned. I know I had just a very different kind of situation. My mom stayed home mostly. She did start a business at one point making dolls and toys for kids with a friend of hers a long time ago when maybe it wasn't as cool or popular for women to start a business. So I started seeing her take a little bit more ownership of her life. And then when my parents got divorced, she had to go retrain herself at a community college and became a person who crafted dental implants for cancer victims and people that were having part of their jaw removed. She was really artistic at that. And I saw her, even with a little bit of alimony or whatever she got, struggle a bit with money. And I knew that we didn't have a lot because I couldn't just ask, my parents for a cell phone and get it the next day. Way back when we didn't have anything like that. And, I felt very conscientious about money. And make a long story short, I think maybe that hit home at about 19 when I was in college. And, I was kept having to ask my dad because I wanted to go to I was at a Division III for wrestling initially school, but it costs a lot of money. Like I didn't have some kind of full scholarship. I got a lot of money my first year. And when I was 19 as a sophomore, they really pulled my funds because my dad had written a book and made a little bit of money, and his income went up and we didn't get as good of a grant. So they kind of pulled that away, which I think colleges do. And that's probably the real pinnacle time about money was I didn't like not having it. I didn't like the fact that I had to ask my parents. So what did I do? I joined ROTC, and it helped get my last 2 years of this expensive school in upstate New York, where I went back to school, paid for, but I also owed them 6 years of reserve duty or 4 years active. I went for the 6 years reserve. So I just made the quicker decision to kind of take a little bit more control over, not having to ask someone for money. And I think that probably was the pinnacle that it came to is, I just didn't want to keep asking someone. I didn't want to be have my dad sort of have to come up with the money with 5 kids, divorced, living in Ohio. My mom lived in Iowa. She didn't have really any to contribute to college. So that's I think in a way where it started with me or culminated.
That's interesting. I was in ROTC too, and I never committed because I forget the numbers. Was it like 6 or 8 years of your life? And I was like, that's a long time for somebody who's 18 years old.
That's a long time when you're 18. When you're like now, later in life, when you're 40s, 50s, whatever, it's like, oh, I should know that. I should have just gone ahead and gone active duty, or should have just gone ahead and done 20 years, and you'd have some kind of military retirement if you weren't injured or killed or whatever. So, it was the decision at the moment. But yeah, maybe I think you probably made a good decision, and I think I made a good decision, and here we are.
Especially at that age, I didn't do well with taking orders, and I didn't do well with someone else deciding where I was going and having control of my life. So we all take a path that works for us, right?
I don't know about that. I think a lot of people take paths that they'll make them work, but sometimes they don't work very well. And that's kind of where I come now and help people, is that, if that path might not be working out, or you want a better one and you have the confidence to go after that, let's get you there. And I think that people that are wise about money, and the more I live and on this earth, and the smarter you can be about money, boy, that's the crux of the matter, isn't it?
Well, money gives you the freedom to make the choices to pick your path, right? It allows you the ability to do that and the freedom to do that. So when you say that, do you see a lot of people who are stuck on a path that, is it not working for them, or did they just pick the wrong path, or what was the underlying issue there?
Sometimes they might be in the right field or industry, but something's changed in terms of the leadership. Something's changed in terms of how the company or the organization's doing business, and then their principles, they're maybe they feel like they're being challenged, or the company changed the deal, or someone was promoted in front of them, or they were given an opportunity but then let go for good reasons or not very good reasons these days. And it just frustrates people. And I think there's a little time, when you're struggling early, that you'll take a job that you don't love, and maybe you just kind of keep doing that. And you just get later, and it becomes more important to you that your work matters, and you're trying to make an impact on others, or, in a certain business. And you realize that, hey, at 40 something or whatever people get to when they decide to maybe make a different move, some things become more important. Maybe they have their situation at home has changed. Maybe the mom or the dad wants to come home and stay home. Maybe there's a divorce in the family like mine. Maybe there's something that's happened that's changed the circumstances, or maybe they want to be involved with an organization that treats people a certain way, and they're not getting that, even though they like the cause essentially that they're in. Let's say they're in biomedical, or they're in a business that's influencing people in some way that they really appreciate. So I think those things become important as people's values change and their ideas, and that's sometimes when I see them at those moments.
And I think a lot of people were taught that a job is a safe way to go, but I think nothing could be further from the truth, in the sense that someone else now has control of how much you make and your work situation. And unfortunately, when we go through these turmoils, like in 2008 and again this time, jobs are cut for no good reason. And usually when people look at the situation and go, why would anyone do that? That makes zero sense. But that's what happens in companies. And I think a lot of times people need to realize it has nothing to do with them, and things outside their control that make no sense can have a dramatic impact on their particular situation.
Mm-hmm. But we get caught up in these probably bad habits of just consumerism or whatever you want to talk about. And everyone's circumstance is different. And, I think, or life and divorce and special needs kids and all these things that can come into play to change your life a little bit. But if you have a plan and a discipline, I think, as you talk about, with money, those people, are able to come into my office and say, look, I'd like to make a move here. It may take me 6 months. I might want to take some time off and really do this right. They've got that choice. Other people just have really put themselves in a position often, and sometimes not, of their doing, to really not have that choice. So, I can't say enough about the work that you do, because I've seen people that have really taken care of their life, their money, their situation. And again, some things are out of our control, but they controlled what they could. And they just seem to be in a more peaceful state, usually when I meet with them, to make a pivot and a move. And they don't feel like they just have to keep rolling that big boulder up the hill only to watch it, the company or the economy seem to come right back down on them. And I think if that's the way you allow things, or don't get an early discipline, or don't start it even later, those are the things that will probably happen to you at some point. You can recover, you can even thrive. But I think having those choices, as you talk about, is super important in the career field and the coaching people in the career area.
So one solid foundation is having money. But there's a couple other solid foundations that I don't think we talk about as much, and school doesn't really teach. And I think it's becoming more popular now, but that is to create your own personal brand so that you're always in demand. And then along with that brand is building your network. And you have to do all these things before you need them, because when it comes time to needing them, they already have to be in place. What have you found with regards to that?
It's even more important today than it ever has been, because your brand now is out there, potentially, at least certainly with LinkedIn and other forms of so-called social media, which are really what I call professional media. The multi-billion-dollar company of Facebook's professional media. It may feel social to you, but it's all about them creating a business for themselves. And so you have to own your brand like you own your career more today. And you have to be extremely aware that anything you do say, it's potentially out there. Someone could be taking pictures, recording you at a meeting. They could be writing something or commenting on something. You could be doing that online. But it's more than that. It's, as you say, it's thinking about how I want to be perceived, what I might want to do as my next chess move after this particular job or company is over. And I think you really have to network that way. And it's hard to really start doing that maybe early career, because you feel like I just need experience. But you never network. And when I say network, build those relationships into areas that will probably be helpful to you, and with people that are pivotal, and within other organizations or even association groups, volunteer organizations that could be invaluable to you. I have a client of mine who we did a search with successfully and found a new position. He chose to go into the ministry for 10 years, but had stayed, involved with a separate from the church he went to in a Bible study. And this sounds very secular, but some of the key contacts and the people that he got to know in that group were influential in giving him some insight into where he would go next after he went from corporate back to ministry and then back to corporate in another area that he wasn't as familiar with. He counted on me, and he counted on his network. I've seen people do that in association groups. I've seen him be long-term involved with Habitat or Special Olympics, where they've met people from really their area or all over the country who are key people to help them. They've stayed in those people who really build and keep relationships and keep relationships first in their networking, and they're influencing their brand, and then they begin to publish. And now you can do things like you're doing. You can, start a blog. You can contribute to professional articles. If you really get that down, probably if you had to age it in your 20s and you continue to build on that, that's very powerful. You could be laid off and maybe go into your own business more rapidly. You could move to a different company because you had 16 different relationships with people within some of your target companies. Wow, John, who plans that much? People that really seem to get lucky do. And I would definitely advocate that. Once you have a focus, even if it doesn't pay you, even if it's not part of your job, you build your personal brand. You have a separate personal brand inside of the organization in a way, in the core, in the business that you're in. And you should have one, even if it's quiet, a little bit quiet and private outside. You can thrive in both, and I'd certainly recommend both.
And so I think we probably need to answer the elephant in the room, which is when you look at finding job opportunities, how much of that is done through filling out job applications or mailing in resumes, and how much of it is literally done backdoor through relationships?
Well, I know there's a lot of theories out there, and some people will tell you that you need to forget about the open job leads and requisitions and just focus on networking. I think to beat that into someone's head is probably a good thing because they will figure out that the relationships you have and the internal referrals within organizations could be much stronger than you filling out an application, which if you sometimes now look on LinkedIn, you can hover over a job lead and it'll show 156 applicants or whatever so far. Indeed, in some of these other aggregator sites, you don't know how many people apply, but it can be just a truly fruitless venture to apply online. But I think you learn a lot by seeing the advertisements. You learn a lot by seeing who's advertising, who's listed, their leads and jobs out there. And it certainly can tell you whether an organization is thriving or moving ahead. But if you depend on only online applications to help you connect with a company when they don't know you other than from the piece of paper, so to speak, the electronic digital version of you, the writing, I think you're just crimping your ability to create a funnel for opportunities. So that, and people are like, well, what's in it for anyone else if I'm networking? Well, at all levels, there are people inside organizations still today that are making just on internal referrals $2,000 to $5,000. But I think you network for deeper reasons, and you get to know the culture and how they really treat people and what they do. And you can only learn so much of that on Glassdoor and some of these other sites. You really have to know. So I would say get into your head, not beaten in, that networking is the key, as you suggest, Rocky, and don't rely on the external advertisements to do the work for you. You have to do it, and you have to take ownership. And again, it comes down to trying to build relationships before you need them inside the organizations you intend to be interested in or apply to.
And that's what I found. I think most of the jobs I've had were through networking. And I know my daughter's in college, and the two opportunities that she found that were great pay, great flexibility were all through personal connections. Somebody that she knew that was already at an organization said, hey, we like you. Here's a great opportunity for you. Why don't you come check it out?
And that's great when it happens to you, but you being constantly curious as a careerist at all ages, really, and asking questions and finding out organizations maybe physically that are near you, even regionally or nationally, and trying to find out how they think and operate and what they do long before you need a job there is some of the best advice I think I can give, and some of the best advice that I have given people over the years.
So part of that is being intentional and saying, where do I want to work and for who do I want to work? And then taking the time to find out where those people are hanging out. I can't tell you how many CEOs I've met because I was at charity events or served on charity boards. And I'm talking big companies. Like it's kind of the indirect way to meet all these people. It's unbelievable. And you just, if you're there with nothing as far as an ask, then it's a great time to build a relationship so that 3 or 4 or 5 years later, that person is just going to pick up the phone and you have an opportunity.
Very wise to be involved. And I think that it doesn't matter where you are, how old you are, you can be involved in things that are charitable without writing gigantic checks. You can be involved in volunteer organizations anywhere in the country, and you can even do it through electronic means. I'm always advocating that for my clients, and interesting things happen. When that happens, it's you know that you have access that way if you've been a multi-year contributor, not just in money, but in time or effort or energy to some kind of a hospital foundation or something in muscular dystrophy or whatever. But sometimes you have to remind people, hey, really be a little bit selfish when you're out there volunteering, when you're serving on boards, when you're at these charity events. Go meet the people that are leading the organization and in charge. Go help that organization thrive in the ways you've been gifted. It goes a long way, but don't be bashful about introducing yourself to the board of directors and getting to know them long before you would ever need something from them. That's incredibly important. And even if you're someone who may move or go from, let's say, Philadelphia to Louisville or wherever, you can still bring that kind of goodwill, and those connections could still help you. It is certainly a global economy, and even in our nation, you may perform a local or regional search, but your national connections and connections you make in one city could open doors in another. Don't ever forget that.
And people know people, and people pick up the phone. And today, the world is going more remote. So it seems like, especially the tech industry, that they're all seeming to have started their exit out of California down to Texas. And now they're saying, hey, if you can work remote and deliver, does it really matter where you are? It gives you a lot more flexibility.
Well, I think the flexible workplace is a reality that 2020 probably taught us. And certainly, if you're Elon Musk and leaving California for Texas, he's one of the Exodus folks. The people on the manufacturing floor, and maybe the people managing the robots that are managing the manufacturing floor, probably can't do it remote, but it's going more and more that way. And I think that interviews, instead of hauling people in and bringing them in for multiple physical interviews, a lot of that's going to be constructed and conducted in a way that you're going to be able to put someone in a room and it's almost like you're standing right next to them. So you're going to see a lot of that. I don't think we're going to have a lot of, at least where we live in North Carolina, a lot of empty offices for the foreseeable future as we get into 2021. But certainly those will be full again, but there may be some more distance between people, and they're certainly going to remove some of the travel and the kind of things that I think people are in the office for, and you can remote them, and that includes a lot of this technical support and other things. So it's certainly going there. This isn't just been a blip where we're going to go online. Now we're all hauling back to doing business the same way we've always done it. No, there's going to be some changes that are going to stay with us. That's for sure.
That there are. And I'm hearing major corporations are already cutting footprints on new buildings, and everyone is looking at it because it's a cost. It's a massive, massive cost. And if you can cut that cost, why not do it? And now even some of the tech companies are going, well, if you move out of the Bay Area to somewhere less, we're going to pay you less. And I'm not going to get into whether it's fair or not, but the reality is not only can you save on office space, now you can save on employee costs. Mm-hmm. They don't care as long as the work gets done. Who cares how it's being done? I think that's the old world way of control. And the young generations, like, we're out. We're not playing these games.
Well, that could create more time for you, but it's what you do with that extra time that could be very important. So let's say you can get your job done and done well remotely in 5 hours. You don't have a commute. You don't have the lunch with the colleagues. Those things can be productive. But if you're getting the work done, and let's say you're remote 2 days and you're in the office 3 days, and you have some time in your hands, what are you gonna do with that time? Is it just downtime? Are you gonna get on your Peloton and are you gonna go to the gym? Or could you take some of that time that you might have to read, to prepare yourself for the next move that you might make, into network perhaps, or leave a little early from that job to get over and get your volunteer work done at 3 p.m. It's just created a different kind of mindset, but I think it's an opportunity. Are we going to invest that time mostly wisely, or do we just need a break? And I would say, if you've got the energy, and certainly if you're early or mid-career, don't waste all that time. Really put it into who you want to be perceived as in 2 years. If you want to start your own enterprise, as I think you have done, and start putting together a team that could help you have the alternative if you ever get laid off. You've got a consulting piece, or you've built relationships with some of the competitors in your field in a region. Never too early to do that. Never too early to think that way.
So let's chat a little bit about LinkedIn. I think a lot of people looked at LinkedIn incorrectly. If you look at their profiles, they look like resumes. LinkedIn is a sales page, and you've got to treat it like your personal brand sales page. I don't know what your thoughts are on that and how you tell people to go about building their LinkedIn profile.
The way I do it is that I call it's very individual. That's what I think. And in some cases, if it doesn't come across as salesy, but communicates a powerful message and a clear message, I think that's the sales side that I would agree with you on. I think the push on LinkedIn is just straight up sales. You accept an invitation to someone and you get the automatic response. You can upgrade the sales navigator. You can, it is very much becoming like a feeling of a transactional. But I called my first article, which was really popular in Forbes.com for Forbes Coaches Council, written a couple of years ago, called The Hidden Conversation About You on LinkedIn. It got a lot of hits. It almost, I guess you would say, went viral. I don't even write for that reason. Maybe I should, but I don't. And I think that probably captures still the way I feel about LinkedIn. It's what others perceive of you that's important, and what they're saying that's important, even though what you've said to the world through your LinkedIn profile is clearly essential. However, how is it coming across? Who are you appealing to? Have you overbuilt your LinkedIn profile so that you look like a job seeker or like a consultant who's got something for sale? Or do you look like someone who is engaged, very professional, has a message to send, but perhaps isn't aggressively trying to get your attention with cute stars and check marks and these other things that you can build your LinkedIn profile around? And you said that it's probably a mistake, I think, to just look at it as an online resume. And I think that's right. I think you have to look at it as one of the most critical pieces of the perception of you. Even if you have an uncommon name, like I think you have an uncommon name, I could probably find you on LinkedIn pretty quickly. I have a more common name. You could if you put John O'Connor in what comes up, maybe LinkedIn, but it probably will say 105 profiles match John O'Connor. So even if you're hard to find via Google, you can be found on LinkedIn. And I think you just have to know, here's how I'm coming across to the people who know me within my organization. If you belong to a company, here's how I come across as an individual business owner. Here's how I know I'm coming across, and most importantly, effectively, the way I want to the people who would see my profile on LinkedIn. And then I think you build it that way. Then you start the communication strategy. Then I talk about habits, because LinkedIn isn't just a little delicate vase that you found and paint and put in a corner to show people when they come in. It is truly an active profile and brand communication tool. That's how I think people should look at it. From there, then it gets into the specifics of not only what you put on your profile, but how you react, respond, and communicate. That's maybe just as important as the profile look.
And you've got to put time and effort and work into it. And it is also about the relationship building that is occurring. And you are right about that, because that is the constant conversation everyone's having is you send out a connection request and immediately you're pitching. It's like a no-brainer, thank you, no. It's a slow process, and it's one that you've got to take time with. And I think that's where people sometimes get it wrong. But it's also a place where you can connect with people very high up in organizations and start building the relationship slowly. And when you come across desperate, no one wants you. But when you come across as not needy, over time, I think you can definitely build up those relationships, and you can play way above your pay grade if you choose to.
Agreed, 100%.
Today's episode is sponsored by Profit Answer Man Podcast. Did you know that most small business owners hate looking at their financials? It's one reason they may struggle with business success. The Profit Answer Man podcast helps them ensure they are profitable and can pay their employees and weather the storms we all have to face. It's built on the Profit First methodology of pay yourself first. The Profit Answer Man podcast is a must listen to for every small business owner and anyone who wants to help them survive and thrive. Check it out on your favorite listening platform. So what's the current environment in the working world these days? I'm out of it, and so I don't see it kind of hidden away.
That's a good thing. You don't have to be in the sturm and drang of looking for a job or being worried about being laid off. And you've made those good choices for yourself that have put you in that position. And others, I do recommend they listen to you on that, because it's really important to have that kind of freedom. I'm a big freedom person, and but I'm beholden to my job in a way, and I do love what I do. However, creating those options, all the higher executives that I've met through LinkedIn, through companies, they all have something on the side. They're always doing something. They're always, they have something that they're interested in or curious about or building that isn't just their main thing. Even if you may perceive of them working 40, 50, 60 hours a week, and maybe they do, but there's always a little something of interest over here that they're working on, or a project, or a look into the future. And I think that sometimes is the difference between people that create freedom for themselves and people that really just kind of go from paycheck to paycheck, job to job. And I don't want to demean anyone who's in that situation, because I work with a lot of folks like that. But the current environment right now, going into 2021, I think is a great opportunity as the workforce hopefully gets reengaged, as unemployment macro comes down. Time to reset, time to find out what's important to you, time to really start working on your personal brand and get it together and be super smart about it, and don't take for granted what you've got to offer others. A lot of times people undervalue what they have to offer and don't know the alternatives. And that's a good reason to have a visionary career coach with you, not just someone who says, well, I'm going to hold you accountable to the goals you need. What if you need new goals? So start that. This is a great time to do it. And I think the job environment's going to get healthier and healthier. And are you ready to meet it? Are you trained? Have you been continuously learning? Are you, as we talked about before, volunteering and in association groups? Well, John, I'm not sure what I want to do yet. Well, still, you can dig your well in all those areas and have a clear path there. And it might even bring you clarity on the bigger picture. But definitely, I think you just have to be optimistic. The last thing I'll say on this is that even at the darkest part of the pandemic, maybe in April or May, a lot of companies were planning how they were going to handle it. Others were caught and couldn't handle it because of lockdowns and other things. And I feel terrible for those folks. And we had to fight too. And a lot of others did. But I'm interviewing probably the top staffing company president on Wednesday of this week in my Zoom for CareerPro folks. And he's already said publicly, we took a hard hit for 2 months, but we reinvented some of our business. We're doing things a little bit differently. And some of the core 3 of the 5 areas of his business, he said, are back stronger than they were before the pandemic. So if he had just looked negatively and didn't respond, so I think you should respond like a company president or a CEO and say, hey, how are we going to pivot, handle this, get through it, survive? But if you don't come out of this 2020 to 2021 saying, hey, how am I going to thrive? Not just the company I work for, but me. How am I going to make sure I'm thriving? Now's the time to think about that.
And that's important. And you do have to pivot. And the people who are pivoting, and I see that even with small businesses, they are thriving. And as business comes back online, they're going to, if you're in the restaurant business, depending on where you are, it's a struggle. But when things go full throttle again, those that survived are going to be able to take over because there's no competition for them anymore. So they're going to be able to grow faster and be able to do that. But you've got to get through the tough times. And part of that is pivoting. And it's funny, as I look back through my work career, I had to pivot a couple times because I saw storms. So in my first job, I saw technology essentially wipe out the company. And I was like, well, this company doesn't, even though they've been around for a long, long time, their future doesn't look great because the technology is getting taken over. I think the second company I worked for, they had a unique product that then turned into a commodity product. And again, when you're in a company like that, it goes downhill and you've got to be ahead of the curve to say what's next. And the world is changing even faster today. So the question is, and maybe you can answer this, what skills do people need, not for 2021, but for 2025 and beyond?
Whoa, that's a tough one to answer right now. I would say that do look ahead at the top companies and the top performers in your industry and just ask yourself or ask them. You haven't been able to go to a national conference in person, but ask them, what are you doing? What are you studying? What are you thinking about? What does the future look like? And you can access a lot of futuristic, visionary things and events and information events, and attending those shouldn't just be a requirement of your company. You ought to have a discipline to do it outside of it. And I think now that things are being recorded and you have access not just always physically right there, you need to be looking ahead like that. And those are the kind of things I think that top professionals are going to do to stay ahead. They're not waiting for the company to announce. As you did, you looked forward and said, look, I see some storms on the horizon. I see those dark clouds. Well, what are you going to do about it? I mean, we do outplacement, and people I know I talked to one today. They hung on for dear life when they knew a year and a half before that the storm clouds were forming, and they just didn't do anything about it. So that idea of pivoting, that idea of being creative with your career, what you'll find is it's not going to de-energize you. It'll probably really energize you. It's not a bad thing at all. And one of the things I think I don't want to leave this conversation without saying, I think you have to get around forward-looking, optimistic people who have done what you're trying to do financially, in life and in business, and ones that perhaps mentor you or will encourage you. And that could come in the form of career coach, and come in form of a friend, a professor, a colleague, someone who's in a competitor's business across the country. I think you have to intentionally associate with people who are going to push you to take some training, continuously learn, to maybe look at the future a little differently than you might. But I need that around me. I need people looking forward a year or two beyond where I am, or because I sometimes can only see the present. Sometimes I can only see 2 weeks. Sometimes I feel like, we're always in a little mini crisis and we just see the next bill, the next thing like that. And you've got to get yourself out of that if you want to, I think, really succeed and have peace of mind doing it. And that's part of, I know what you do. And it's a part of what I do is I help people look ahead on their careers, and you help people and small companies look ahead for their business to create options that they really need, but they don't know how to get there. And we're the sort of the map finders here, the people that go forward in front and blaze the trail. And hopefully we can help people continue to do that. That's so important.
That it is. And it reminds me, I'm reading a book right now called The Future is Faster Than You Think by Peter Diamandis. And they're talking about how converging, transforming technologies are transforming businesses and industries and our lives. And they're literally talking about 3D printed clothes. They're talking about the end of the cashier. They're talking about AIs, talking to AIs. And so you're looking at entire job classes disappearing into the future. Now, does it happen tomorrow or 10 years? Who's to say? But, they kind of went through and show how, Sears started from essentially nothing, became this massive company, and then is now bankrupt. And Amazon is taking over. But even Bezos has said, one day we're going to be bankrupt, because he realizes that the world changes and somebody at some point is going to come out with a faster, better way of doing business. And I think that's going to happen at a faster and faster rate going forward, and as things continue to change, that's what we're going to see. So it's an unknown world. You have to learn to deal with uncertainty, and you have to keep on. And this isn't a race. Like, it's just be aware of what's happening around you. Look around and see what opportunities are happening. Look around and see trends. The fastest way to skyrocket yourself is if you can be at the front end of a trend, just talking about it, not even working, like as you talked about in the evening, right? If you see a hot trend, if you start talking about that trend, you automatically become the expert, because there are no experts, right?
If nothing else, Rocky, it makes you a better conversationalist. It makes you someone that someone does want to have a conversation with and get to know. People that are forward thinking like that and talking about the future and the books they read and the places they're going and where they think things are happening, is much more interesting talking to that person than someone who's complaining about where things are and why they've changed. And that's something to keep in mind too, because continuous conversation along with continuous learning with people that are going somewhere and have a vision will keep you fresh. It'll keep you young. It'll keep you quite interesting to people at work, and also people who you want to connect to and have a conversation with. I mean, I know that I love having those kinds of conversations, because if you say, how do you see the future, to someone who really cares about it and needs to see it correctly or needs to anticipate it, well, you can get them talking. And forward-looking mindset will get you into a lot of interesting conversations, and it'll remind you that the future looks pretty good.
That it does. So let's kind of switch gears here. What advice do you have for people who are in transition? I've met a few people recently who were displaced from their jobs. It had nothing whatsoever to do with them. But here you are out of work in a time of uncertainty, and also in a way, and we'll dig into a little bit more about how interviewing has kind of changed. But I think the biggest thing that I see with those people is fixing the mindset. So we get mad that we gave our heart and soul to somebody and they make silly decisions to let us go that don't make sense. So it's part of letting go of that. And it's part of letting go thinking it was something you did. But then how do they kind of make that switch, and what should they be doing to kind of take action towards a new opportunity?
You talk to people all the time. It depends on how they've handled themselves, their money, their personal situation. Some people need to get a job so fast, so right away. They don't have many choices. They're like, look, I got to get health insurance. I got to do this. I think others have found that this layoff, no fault of their own, sometimes is the only time that their brain will slow down. And it does. And they say, maybe I want to change something. Maybe I don't want to keep doing what I've done. Maybe this is a bit of a message to me that it is time for a change and to do something better, to do something more enjoyable. So that sometimes it has that effect. I think you have to view it the latter way, where it's, this is a message of not just discouragement, but hey, something needs to change versus I have to go survive again. Go survive again if you have to, but start to think about how I will thrive physically, mentally, financially, spiritually in my next role. You can, maybe that's what this takes. So I've found people that have said, you know what, this is a time to really reinvent, to maybe change my career, maybe not work around negative people anymore. Maybe not just, I have a client who's flown to another city for 10 of the 11 years and 12 years of his kids' lives. So he's been gone for all but 1 or 2 years of their life, for the most part, flying out of a city, consulting, making lots of money. God bless him. Great. One of the best probably in the world at what the person did, what he does. But was it worth it? Is that worth it? Do you have a choice to do something different with your life? So ponder that and get some help pondering that, because it's hard to get out of your own head. And I think that's where your network, where people that really care about you, people who have helped other people see that future, or start saving and start investing and start building their small business a little bit better, then start looking at, all right, what am I going to do for the vocation? But sometimes I would look at it as a blessing, sometimes in disguise, and treat it as such, and use that time, if you've got it, to recalc and get back out there and say, hey, what's going to make me deeply happy or joyous in my next role? Where do I want to be? Not just what do I want to do, but where do I want to do it? Because sometimes you can be doing the thing that you love in a place that you don't like those people, and it's not productive, and it's even sometimes toxic. So I think I help people weigh the balance of, hey, where do you want to be? With whom do you want to go through this work life? And then how do you want to get there, and what do you want to do? So I think it's a combination. It's complicated. It can be. But there are plenty of guides out there, and I wouldn't just try to DIY it all.
No, sometimes you need help, and there's nothing wrong with asking for help. You don't have to do everything yourself anymore, right?
For sure. If anything that's true in this world, that is true.
You can ask for help and say, hey, who can help me get to the next step? And you'll get there faster and with less struggles. And that's up to you, whether or not you want to listen. So as we look at this, one of the things that shifted, and for me, it was no big deal, but it was something that I noticed early on when COVID hit, and it drove me up the wall, was people and Zoom, right? The world now lives on Zoom. And I think for the most part, they've gotten it better, but interviews are now taking place on Zoom. And one of the things that actually helped me pivot and thrive so quickly was I was already set up to, because my clients, I was already on Zoom with them. I already had, and because of the podcast, I had all the equipment. So I was able to look impressive on Zoom. And And so that was helpful. But I see a lot of people, even young people today, struggle with the platforms and the different platforms that are out there. What advice do you have for people as they may have to interview and connect or even just network on Zoom?
Maybe you're doing it in college and didn't really need to know that I got to do this, as a part of whatever job that I have the rest of my life. Well, maybe not as much as you think. I think the vaccines that are rolling out will have a really good effect and so on. But yeah, it's going to be an absolute reality for a long time. And as I said, I did an article in 2019 that was talking about the future and how things will become more digital, electronic, et cetera. And I didn't know about the pandemic, but I was right. And I that's a pretty easy call in a way because it's going to go more electronic and digital. And it sure has. It's recruiting, for example. So it is just surprising. I think you have to actually practice on all the platforms and get very comfortable with them and get extremely efficient at moving from one to the other or saying, hey, why don't we set up a Zoom meeting? Can we just do a phone call this time? Can we do that? And also, here's the hard part for some introverts and others, being comfortable in your own skin on the other side of that video, whatever you're doing. Maybe you're someone who isn't customer facing, but if you're awkward and uncomfortable in front of the camera right now, well, that's a disadvantage, not just for interviews, but even for the work that you may do. So you're going to have to get comfortable and you're going to have to create your own little style there and be at home with yourself, not be too judgmental. I think one of the first things people should think about doing now, if possible, whenever they're going on either an interview or they're at home with their computer, is make sure as you have down pat, the sound is decent, that you dress up a little bit more than you might have in the past. So start dressing the part. You'll start feeling a little bit more in charge. I think we have to upgrade our presence and our confidence and our communication skills over these platforms because they are a reality. They're not just coming, they're here. And they're here to stay in a lot of situations. It may not be your full-time gig to check in on these devices. You may be going back into an office for your job or whatever, but it's here.
Even if we go back into the office for a job, I think more and more just cutting cost of travel and ease of meeting, I think the video meeting is here to stay. And it's a better way to build relationships. And it's so inexpensive today that it's almost like, why not? So I know before, when I was working in corporate and we would be on Zoom calls, nobody would turn their camera on. That was the standard. Now the standard is many times if you don't turn your camera on, it's like you're hiding something. So I think the world changed and you've got to pivot with it.
That's the perception. Unless you call in and say, hey, I'm having a little technical difficulties or, they're doing work in the background that could be distracting to the call somehow, some way. If you don't have a reason for it, then you look like it's almost like you're monitoring what we're doing, but you're not really participating and we can't count on you. So yeah, it's a tough message. I, in the middle of this, probably 3 or maybe 4 or 5 months ago, actually, I coached a bunch of NC State engineering students who were all a part of a club, maybe 40 or 50 of them. And we talked about how to become very comfortable in front of a camera and be yourself and learn to communicate that way. And I'm telling you what, there's a lot of awkward stares and a lot of things, but when we got done, even in one session, you had people more expressive because they become, I call them Zoom zombies, from these classes they were doing. They're not supposed to move. They have to look into the camera. They can't do anything because, the people in the classes are monitoring them to make sure they're staying in the classes. We kind of taught them how to free up and be themselves a little bit. And I think that's what it's going to take. And you need to be very conscientious about how you're coming across on these platforms and to create a little bit of your own style, your own way to communicate effectively on them, and don't rely on anyone else, and don't become kind of a zombie on these platforms. Really, you're going to have to be active, and it isn't easy, and it's going to be a reality of your job somehow, some way. One example is, if someone I think that sick policies will change at work. If you're not feeling well, you're just going to be asked no question about it. It used to be, you need to come in, we need to work on this project. It's like, stay home. We don't want, I think just the sensitivity about infections and other things, we don't want you, don't worry, we're good. Why don't you call in at 10 and we'll start working on the project. It's going to be a seamless move.
And that's very true. Sick days will no longer be sick days unless you're really, really sick. They'll be like, you can hop on a call, we'll chat through it, or I'll send you stuff electronically. And, the world is now virtual. So that kind of stuff is another thing that is changing.
And a warning that you kind of started a bit too is that, companies may have a little bit feel like, hey, we're in a little bit more control now. We can, if you're not feeling well, you want some time off. This always on working world's probably crept up on us a little bit. And so watch for that too. Your freedom's been diminished a little bit in this past year, and some of it's coming back, and some of that control and that, hey, you can be productive all the time because you can communicate all the time from where you are. You lose a little bit there too. So you have to watch that and know what you want your future to look like. If it's independent business ownership, if it's making sure you save up and are ready for your next move, which I know you coach people on. All very important to be considering right now.
That's true. I don't think people realize how invasive the software can be, in the sense that, and I don't know specifically for Zoom, but some of the platforms can track your eye movement and they will tell you participation focus. I know for Zoom, the private chat is sent to the host. So if you're private chatting on Zoom, the host will get it. So if you're at work and you're making comments behind the scenes, the person hosting the meeting will see it all. It's not private. And there's a host of other things that I think are going to go on with regards to that. And I'm sure that if they wanted to, they could probably also figure out where you're sitting, which will also become a problem for companies. I don't think people realize that. People think, oh, I'm working remotely, it doesn't matter where I am. For a company, they have tax consequences based on where you're located. And so there's a whole host of things beyond what we just normally think about that come into being. And you need to be aware of that and watch your behavior, right? Because that might be the reason you got let go.
Many law firms and lawyers that could be sharpening their swords right now going, hey, I'm welcoming this new conflict potentially in the workplace. Who knows?
And that's very, very possible. You just never know. You've got to watch out. So as we close out, what are some of the biggest mistakes you've seen people make in some of the things that we've talked about?
Well, I think just not knowing that you can be and should be intentional. Really, at any age, you can start this. Even if you're intentional at age 22 after college, for example, about your career path. And at 26, it changes and pivots. But yeah, I just think that it's okay to be building a network, even if you don't know what that network's going to do. If you're just building a network to get something out of it, that's a sales pitch. So try and modify that by saying, I want to build a network of people who could be a good influence on me, people at organizations that I admire their work. I'm not even sure I want to work there. I like what they're doing, from nonprofits to for-profits to, what are the kind of things that are going on inside of Google? Who wouldn't want to have a friend to find out, how they're operating and how they think at Amazon? And you don't just need people. Read up on those things. Look at the future. I think it's like an ego thing that you wouldn't or it's just something built into your system where you think you have to do it all yourself. As you said earlier, we don't have to do it all ourselves now. But I do think you need humans involved in your career path and your next move and encouraging you and so on. I mean, I'm dealing with a guy who's 31 years old now, and he's like, I'm doing this because I was good at technology, but I don't love doing the tech support leadership roles I'm starting to get into now. I want to be more creative. Oh, really? How did you figure that out at 31, 32? But I think at all ages, at all times in your life, seek out help, build friendships with different generations, with diverse people in terms of how they think, in terms of what they see. But make sure you surround yourself with encouraging people that believe in you but will challenge you, and be very intentional about that. Even if you haven't got it all figured out career-wise, or you feel like, hey, I'm not sure what I want to be in when I grow up. It's very, very important to be intentional about those things. And I think people just are passive about it. They get caught up, they find a job, they're 10 years later, they get engaged, they get married. 3 years later, they have a kid. It's like, I don't think I planned any of this. I don't think it's going to wreck your freedom to take more individual brand responsibility and personal responsibility. And I know you advocate fiscal responsibility as early as you can. But even if you're in your 50s or 60s, it is not too late. And you're going to be setting a great example for those who are watching you, even if you get to these kinds of ideas late. Never give up. Never, ever stop believing in your capability and your value. You have value. Make sure you're intentional about it and bring it out.
And that's true. I'm in my mid-50s. I made a major pivot last year, and at some point I'm going to make another major pivot. I just don't know when that is yet. But I continue to work towards it. I think I got at least 2 or 3 more pivots before it's all done. Who knows? We'll see what it all brings. So we always like to leave people with an action step. What's something people can do this week to move forward in their lives?
Ask yourself this question. Am I where I want to be financially, physically, spiritually, career-wise? And if the answer is sort of or no or a little bit, time to start planning. But be encouraged, because you can do it. You can, certainly if there's been a setback this year, you felt enclosed. Even if you're a college student, start thinking this way right now. Don't ever get out of that. You can do something about it. The world's opening back up again. Good things are on the way, and good things are on the way for you.
The one thing I tell every college student is early on. So like by sophomore year, get on LinkedIn and reach out to top executives or top people in the areas that you're interested in learning about, and ask them if you can have a coffee meeting. And connect to 5 a week, set up 1 coffee meeting a week. You will have met 50 executives in the course of a year, and you're doing it when you don't need a job. When your senior year comes along, if you've been smart about keeping up those relationships, you won't have to worry about job offers. There will be multiples.
There's few people who will do what you say and do it right and do it with intention and do it smart and not just do it haphazardly with a crappy LinkedIn profile. If you're going to be that serious, then you need to come across as a serious professional on LinkedIn, even if you're a college student. That's where we help people, certainly. And I think the advice of reaching out, that is the absolute right instinct. Even if they did 1 a month, it's better than none a month.
That is correct. It's always about taking action. It's time to learn the secrets of life. What's your secret to living an abundant life?
Making sure that you have loving people surrounding you at all times in your life, and continue to pursue that whoever you are, wherever you are, whatever age you are. I think it's certainly something that I need and I'm very thankful for, and that I have that. And I think it's really important to create that kind of loving environment. Even if you're an adult, I'm not a kid anymore. I don't need all this. Yes, you do.
Relationships are very, very powerful, and they're one of the core tenets that we talk about here on the podcast. What did you learn later in life that you wish you would have learned sooner?
Just the things we were talking about today, that it's okay to plan for your success and to try to achieve some of the things that maybe you think are a little bit out of reach, or that I probably oughtn't go for that. That might take too much time or be too much effort. Never too late to start planning and dreaming about what you want to do, be, create, develop. And I think the more people see you in that mode, the more people see you in that way, the more people you will inspire, and you'll inspire yourself to do more. And again, I wish I would, talking to my younger self, I'd say, hey, here are all the things that you're going to think that you have to delay and can't do and shouldn't take a crack at until you got everything together. Well, you're never going to have everything together. So start now, because you can get there, and getting there, and just the journey is really the part of it. And it's more fun to be on a journey, going somewhere you want to go than being led through life by what it feels like circumstances.
You shoot for the moon, and even if you miss, you're still going to be a lot further along than
you're going to be in outer space, Rocky.
Yeah. If you didn't try at all.
You'll be in outer space, but it'll be a pretty freeing kind of experience. Don't worry about it.
If you were to give an 18-year-old one specific piece of wisdom, what would it be?
Believe the good future that's in front of you.
Optimistic outlook. If people would like to find you, connect, or seek your help out, what is the best way for them to do that?
I think CareerProInc.com. Email, connect with us. It's all via that website. Read some of my articles or some of the content that we have out there, and engage. Love to connect with you on LinkedIn through John at CareerProInc.com, or just Google CareerPro Inc. John O'Connor, John M. O'Connor. You can read some of my articles in Forbes by just Googling that. Pretty easy, Rocky. And thanks for the opportunity to speak with you and your guests.
And thank you so much for joining us today. And I'll put that in the show notes.
Awesome.
I have to admit, for a good part of my life, I was always fearful of losing a job at the height of my career and kind of losing it all. And it's a story that you always read in the papers during every single downturn. And there have been many. The average downturn happens about every 7 years. That's why I was prepared, so I would never have to worry. This time around, I'm seeing people who are loyal and highly productive employees lose their job through no fault of their own. And I got to tell you, it's not a pretty place to be. Their egos are bruised. That's why we prepare, because we will have even more success when we plan things out. Think about what's the future of your work and ask yourself, do you need to start pivoting so that you can thrive? Coming back to where we started with our quote, today's action step is to ask, am I where I want to be in every part of my life? If not, take action, pivot, thrive. You may need to get help, and that's fine. Get help. That will allow you to move faster. Hey, if you like the show, can you do me a favor and leave a review? Honestly, I could care less. But recently, I've been trying to book some amazing guests, and they're actually looking at the number of reviews that the show has. They're asking me about that. And so in order to help us get better guests, I would appreciate if you'd actually leave a written review. Thanks so much. Next week on, we have Trevor Oldham. He paid off $90K in college debt the year after he graduated. He's got a very interesting story. Thanks for listening. Have an abundant week.